In preparation for the next face-off video, I picked up this motherboard on eBay for $4. It's a Jetway board. This is a socket 775 board with an AGP slot. It's running a VIA chipset and it's got DDR memory on it. Kind of an interesting combination. This motherboard, however, had bad capacitors down here in the voltage regulation section of, right down in here. As you can see, I've already recapped that. But what I'm going to do in this video is actually test the capacitors that came off this board, because this board, it did turn on, but it wouldn't complete boot into Windows XP, and just blue screen during boot up. And it also did when I tried booting it up from the CD as well. So I was hoping that the capacitors, even though they were bulged, and there were some that were starting to spew a little bit, I was hoping that they'd be at least good enough to get me through the benchmarking portion of the video, but that wasn't the case. But I've got this thing kind of slap and tickled together here with a heatsink on top of that Pentium 4 3.4 D right there. Got the 4 mega of level 2 cache on it. And that fan's really loud, but it's, like I said, the slap and tickle project here. So I'm going to test these capacitors and see how many of those ones that were bulged and leaking were actually bad. I'm just kind of curious. There were these 4 right around here. These were, well, they weren't swollen or leaking, but I replaced those anyway. There's 3 pairs right here. Those were all the ones that were swollen and leaking, and they're actually running kind of warm too, which is why they failed. There's voltage regulators down in here that are running pretty hot, and so that heat's being transferred through the PCB here up into the capacitors, so they're running kind of warm. Long term, I would prefer to put a fan on this, but it's going to be more than good enough to get through the benchmarking portion. There's also one other tiny little voltage regulator up under this heatsink here that runs extremely hot. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and see what those capacitors test out like. This little Klinko tablet holder comes in handy for so many things. So let's go ahead and test these capacitors. Now we've got 2 different types here. We've got 1800 UF, and these were Samyang brand. Yeah, real cheap there. And these are the ones here that were good, the 1800 UFs. Well, at least they weren't swollen or leaking. Whether they're good or not, I have no idea. Cheap, shitty capacitors like this, I would never reuse anyway. But thankfully, they came out without damaging the motherboard, which is not always the case. And these are the bad ones right here. The ones that are definitely bad. You can see a little bit of leakage right there, and not swollen on the bottom. One of them was that one I didn't see it leaking, so that one, yeah, maybe it's got a little bit actually. Now I see it. You can see this one was leaking from the leg. Its guts are starting to spill out, and there's a little bit of staining on the top. This one here's got some as well on it, because I just dropped that, and they all got a little bit of discoloration, but one of these wasn't swollen. I just pushed them down actually. I was like, well, maybe that'll fix it, which I know it wouldn't. But so anyway, let's go ahead and let's do put it on the 2000 UF scale and test these 1800 UF ones here first. Alright, so let's go ahead and test this 1800 UF one right here. And it went completely off the scale. So it's testing at about 2100 UF. So I'd say that's a little bit out of range. but there is a tolerance on these. And this one's testing about 2000 UF. Let's see there. Yeah, prop this camera up a little bit there. There we go. Propped up by a thumb drive. Conveniently handy next to me. Alright, let's test this one. Again, we got about 2000. And let's see about this one. And again, we're about 2100 there. Alright, so theoretically these caps should still be good. Now let's test the ones that were actually leaking. Okay, yeah, you can see here. Let me get that scale down. So this is the 2200 UF, and you can see that we're at only 1000 on that. So he is definitely a bad show there. Test the next one. This is the one that's got his guts coming out the bottom. 640, we'll say there. Way out of spec. And let's check this one here. And yeah, well, it's pretty close to 1000, but still way out of spec. I think we're going to find that that's the case with all of these. Maybe I should hook these up backwards to a battery and just explode them. 850. And we'll check the last one here. 820. It's going up a little bit there, but yeah, all these that were leaking are completely bad. Alright, so let's test one of these new Rubicons that I've got here. These are 1800 16 volt. And we're pretty much right at 1800. It's a little bit under there. It's going up, man. Yeah, I'd say that's within spec. So, you can see that the other ones, these ones actually had higher capacitance in their rated value. So that doesn't mean that those are bad. Those are actually still good, actually. But, yeah, so it's interesting to know. Let's see here. These are 6.3 volt. Well, anyway. It's kind of interesting just to see caps that are leaking, how far out of tolerance they are, and you can see that they're very, very well out of tolerance. Take care, everyone. Peace out.